Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and members of the committee. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Audit and Resources Committee, which is being broadcast and recorded via Microsoft Teams Live. My name is Councillor Steve Holes. I am chair of the committee and will be conducting the meeting tonight. During the meeting, you will hear from members of the Audit and Resources Committee who are on your screen now. Could I have a roll call, please? Councillor Bourne?
Here, Chair.
Councillor Atkinson?
Here, Chair.
Councillor Dean? Okay, Councillor Irish?
Here, Chair.
Councillor Manning?
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rushton? Councillor Trace?
Here.
Councillor Tennant?
Present, Chair.
And Councillor Tyson Payne?
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Also present are officers of the Eastleigh Borough Council who are now shown on your screen. They will introduce the reports that have been written for the committee tonight. If we have any non-committee members joining us, I will bring them in at relevant points to ask them to introduce themselves before asking their questions or contributing. If we experience a connection problem, this event will be paused. If a councillor loses connection or joins later, I will ask them to introduce or reintroduce themselves for the benefit of the viewers. In the unlikely event of myself losing connection, the Vice Chair, Councillor Bourne, will take over. The first item on the agenda is apologies. Laura, do we have any apologies?
No apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members of the committee have a declaration they wish to make on any of the items tonight? It's negative, and obviously if something comes up during the meeting, indicate in the normal way. Item 3 then are the minutes of the last meeting held on the 1st of December 2020. Do I have any comments on the minutes? And can I have a proposer?
I'd like to propose, Chair.
That's Councillor Bourne, thank you. And the seconder?
I'd like to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tennant. All in favour, please say aye.
Yes, in favour.
Aye.
Yeah, aye.
Yes.
Any abstentions?
Just,
Any against?
sorry,
Okay,
Chair,
that's
I-
clearly carried. Thank you. Item 4, public participation. Are there any members of the public that have indicated they wish to speak tonight in the open section?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 5, the internal audit quarterly monitoring statement, quarter 3, will be presented by Joe Cassar. And I believe Councillor Jureski, who's not a member of this committee, has indicated she wishes to speak after you've given your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. This is the quarter 3 monitoring report. So we're looking at the period of 1st of October through to the 31st of December. If I just take you through the paper and give you a little summary, just drawing your attention to paragraph 5. So just to let you know that I've recently been appointed as the new executive head of governance. So my role has changed slightly. Just want to give you some assurance that for the interim, I'm still going to be carrying out the role of head of internal audit as well. So for the time being, I will continue to present these reports to you. I'll also present the annual plan and the annual opinion. The day-to-day management, the way I'm sort of proposing that we manage the independence is that day-to-day, the senior internal auditor, so you recall she did attend a meeting probably about a year ago when we were still able to do it face-to-face. And she will take on the day-to-day management of the team and will maintain the independence from me. So whilst I'll have a bit of input, really, to maintain independence, she's going to sort of drive forward the delivery of the audit plan. So she will be coming to the next meeting in March with me to present the new audit plan. So you'll all have opportunity to meet her again at the next meeting. Just moving on through the report, paragraph 6. So you'll recall that we carried forward a few audits left over from 1920 into 2021, and when I presented my annual opinion in July, I was going to come back to you with the results of those audits that I could then firm up my opinion for 1920. What I'm now proposing, just because we're so far through 2021, that I now actually move those audits into 2021 and they form part of the opinion for 2020, the scope of the work for 2021. So there is a recommendation in paragraph 6 that you agree that, if you're happy. Just coming down through paragraph 9. So Appendix C has got some guidance produced by SITFA, and it's all around recognising that it's been a very unusual year, unprecedented, and of course the plans that all the heads of audits put forward to their audit committees in March completely were thrown out the window, I guess, for want of a better expression, due to the pandemic. So you'll be aware that I've been twice, July and December, with a revised plan, hoping to still be able to deliver that annual opinion. They've now delivered guidance on what's considered a limitation of scope. So if I don't feel I've got the audit coverage, I'm able to produce a limitation of the scope as opposed to an annual opinion for 2021. At this point, I'm still hoping that we would have covered enough, but of course a lot of that is going to depend on the health well-being of the team, and not only them, the audits that we're trying to complete, the staff, the input from them that we need. So if I can just try and put this into a bit of context, I was trying to today think of the best way to explain it. If I can just jump on to page 17, so Appendix B. So you'll see there we've got 10 audits. At the moment we've completed 3. A lot are still in progress, and I've just worked out we're probably about to start another 3. So if we can get all that work finished, I'm comfortable that I can deliver an annual opinion. But of course that's a big if. I don't know what the impact of the pandemic is going to have on the council, on council priorities, on resources. So whilst we are striving to do our best to deliver the plan, I just wanted to sort of give you a bit of a heads up that potentially we may be in a position where I have to deliver a limitation of scope to you all when I come with the annual opinion in July. I think that was all I really wanted to draw attention to. So if I can open it up to questions. Councillor Gruevski, I think you had a question.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Yes, just a couple of things, one comment and one question. From my reading of it, the corporate governance and asset management is still to do from 1920, but it's not going to now be done until 21-22. Is that right?
Yes, so that work was started in the last quarter of 1920, so a year ago approximately, and was then paused so that we could respond to the pandemic. And of course, we helped with the delivery of the business support grants, all the other work. So everything was paused, and we've picked those pieces of work up, and they're just ongoing because other work has just come in.
I appreciate how busy you've been. I know you're not sitting twiddling your thumbs, and that it's been all hands on deck, but I just wonder if that is acceptable, or whether more staff should have been brought in. And my other question is on paragraph 20, where it talks about the audit team being unable to access physical records whilst the offices are closed. And I was quite surprised that there are some things for which we only have physical records. I mean, what proportion of Eastleigh staff, if I can put it that way, has not been put onto what's it called, computers? That's not the phrase I was looking for, but you know what I mean.
So where that does happen, we do try to just use our testing sample. We're trying to do it remotely and use the records that we've got electronically. There are instances where some of the older documentation is only available in the office, and we can't, because of health and wellbeing, it's better. We're not considering it that it's essential to go in there to dig out that piece of paper. So we are highlighting that in every individual audit report that it happens, and then we're considering whether we do need to come back in next year when the offices are open and things are a bit more secure, safe, that we can come in and we'll do that work then. Does that?
So, yeah, but how much of the work is on paper, and would it not perhaps be a good idea that if things are on bits of paper, that those bits of paper are scanned so that they are held electronically? Yeah. I think Councillor Manning's frozen, either that or is he with us? No, I don't think he is he? Anyway, yeah, so that was my question about stuff being, on paper and not even scanned to be held electronically.
No, I think that's a great point, and I'm going to take that, and I think it's an opportunity that when we do get that time to look at it, I think we can then consider what was it that wasn't available and almost push to say it's got to be scanned in. So yeah, no, I think it's a lesson learned that we can take on the back of this when we sort of move in from, I think we're still in response into the recovery.
Right, thanks Jo, thanks Chairman. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Right, just looking down, Councillor Atkinson, some questions?
I do indeed. Good evening, Jo. Nice to see you, and congratulations on your new role.
Thank you.
That's nice to see you doing that. But needless to say, you sort of answered some of the questions I had about that, because it is now quite a big umbrella of roles that you're taking over in governance, and internal audit is just a part of that. And I did have concerns about being able to retain independence, because it's so important that the internal audit does stay somewhat remotely from everybody else for obvious reasons. And so I was concerned about that. You've partway answered it, but I did wonder whether internal audit or head of internal audit shouldn't be reporting perhaps directly to somebody as you have done. You've reported directly to the corporate director and have ability to report to Nick Tustian and also directly to A&R. And I think that particular reporting line should be retained for the internal head of audit. I recognise you're still doing that, and perhaps I could ask what the proposals are, and you might want to deal with my questions as we go, because it might be easier to do it like that, but what your proposals are, because I know that you have the full qualifications to be head of internal audit. Does the internal audit team have other members who have similar qualifications and would be able to take on that role? And also, I'm just a little concerned because I think you're sort of only 0.76 full-time equivalent. And again, whether we do need the other 0.24 of you to be able to complete the full role. I'm just concerned about your time availability and, as a result, the resources available for audit, internal audit.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just to give you some reassurance, I am now back to full-time, so I'm.
That's good.
So sorry, I just realised I should have put that in the report, a bit of a difference between 0.76 and full-time. Yeah. So no, I'm back to 100%. Qualifications for the team. So I've actually got some good news to share. So you'll be aware I've got the audit apprentice. Yesterday, he heard that he's qualified, so he's now completed his certificate in internal auditing. So he can use the designation IA Cert, which is fantastic news because he's been able to achieve that whilst studying remotely. I think he was expecting, I think he never was able to get to London twice to actually attend some workshops, and the rest of it he's done from home. So we're really pleased that he's obtained that qualification. And the audit senior is part qualified, so she's sort of busy trying to now obtain the qualification so that we can then have a look at the structure of the team.
So the reality of that is then that there isn't actually anybody fully qualified in the internal audit team that could take on the role of internal head of audit.
Not currently, which is why, as I'm the only one with the qualification, I think it still needs to be me that presents you with the monitoring reports and the audit plan and the annual opinion. So it's going to be that case of making it clear to you which hat I'm actually wearing on that occasion, and to make sure that we've got that independence. I mean, you mentioned about reporting lines. So of course, the internal audit charter gives the head of internal audit that dotted line through to the chief exec if they need it. And that would be a relationship that, as Lisa is starting to take on that day-to-day management, that she can have that relationship. If she needs to go direct to Sarah as section 151 officer, then she can do that and bypass me. In terms of, it's something I've been given some consideration to. So in terms of the audit universe and the audit plan, in there's a pocket of probably about half a dozen audit reviews, which I could be considered the audit client in my role overseeing legal, democratic services and elections. So in those instances, we could explore some arrangements for buying in a resource to keep that independence, and perhaps, I completely step away from them and we can buy in a resource for the interim for those to complete those audit reviews. But it's still early days and I just need a little bit of time to have a look at that transition plan and the structure for the team. But I just wanted to give you some assurance that for the interim, I will have to wear two hats, but yeah. I think that's possible.
Thank you, Jo, for that clarification. Can you please make sure we're updated on that? Because I think it's so essential that the internal audit team is kept at arm's length and does have complete independence from the rest of activities on council. Perhaps at this precise moment then I can go back to what I was going to, I asked the chair I could raise in this order. Perhaps you could look at yourself in terms of looking at legal processes, and please could you check on what your processes are for ensuring that Company House records where we have an involvement with Companies House are kept up to date. I did notice and advised somebody, and I noticed a rectification has now been made, that one of our companies had not filed its accounts by the due date, and therefore you've incurred a penalty of £150. And that then prompted me to look at some other areas, and I noticed that as of the 5th of February, there are a couple of companies, Aspect Eastleigh Limited, Woodside Avenue Developments LLP, in particular, that still are showing correspondence addresses which relate to a member's address, and that member has left council in 2018. So I'm a little concerned as to whether correspondence regarding those entities have been sent to a private individual's address, and therefore there's a breach of some sort of confidentiality, or we're not getting proper information. So please could you review the processes of filings with Companies House, because I do think it is really important that we're up to date with our statutory filing requirements. Because important correspondence could go astray.
That's fine. Sarah, did you want to come in?
Yes, yeah, I can pick that up. So you're right, Councillor Atkinson. One of the companies unfortunately was missed off, so we've strengthened our procedures in our legal team to make sure that doesn't happen again. The other companies you refer to are, we have an external company secretary who deals with that, so I'll follow up those points on the address with them just to make sure that we have the relevant address. But other than that, all those accounts are all filed and accurate.
I'm pleased. I did. You might have guessed I did have a look at the one that I picked up on and saw that had happened. So thank you for that, Sarah. But I think what would be concerning me is that we do have correspondence addresses that are other than Eastleigh House. I do not see how or why that should occur when it's relating to a company. I can't think of a situation why we would have an address other than Eastleigh House for that purpose.
No, I'll check up. Oh, actually, Andy Smith, I think, has a response to come back on. Andy?
You're muted.
Do you know that's such an expression now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's specifically for independence of the companies, because we're only one member of the company. It was deemed for more independence, it was suitable to not be one of the member parties. Hence, most of the file and addresses should be TIA, the administration company.
Yeah, I certainly don't think they should be a member's home address, and certainly it should be checked once that member is no longer a councillor, because otherwise they're just a member of the ordinary member of the public, and we shouldn't have correspondence relating to companies related to the council going to a private individual's address.
No.
So challenge for you, Joe. Your first check on yourself.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Can I move on a little bit? Can I just ask you about the movement of the 2 audit reviews that you've already commented on? Can I just ask that you would be content that you would have done sufficient reviews for 1920 to still give the audit annual opinion that you did for 1920? You're content that you've got sufficient under your in that area?
Yes, so we would have completed 20 for 1920, and moving those 2 over and looking at what we're completing this year, we're sort of looking at possibly about 15, which I think, given the circumstances with the impact on the team in the pandemic, is acceptable if we can get them fully completed. And that's my concern, is that we need to make, I need my team healthy, I need other staff healthy, that we've got the resource to answer the queries we've got to be able to provide the information we need. And that's where I'm just slightly nervous that, quite rightly, there's going to be other priorities at the moment with the pandemic. So that's what I'm closely monitoring. And just to add, if we probably go back, before my time, but probably eight years ago, I think usually the team would complete the fundamentals, so those traditional financial audits, and there were approximately 12 of those a year. So I think if you look at where we were a while ago, where we were able to get to, where we are now, I'm sort of comfortable. And of course, as part of the plan that will come back to you in March for next year, a lot of that will look at that recovery and how we can pick up the audits that slipped this year in future years and get back to that point where we were pre-COVID.
Thank you, Joe. Because having read the report, and I wasn't going to the sort of detail where you've picked up, because I think I'll be repeating myself of issues that we've raised over past reports. But what I did want to pick up on is whether you feel you've got adequate resources, because you sort of touched on that. You're worried lest you're going to be able to complete the 10 audit reviews that you basically have got to do if you're going to be able to give an annual opinion. So resources are concerning me quite considerably, and I know you've brought in some, but have you brought in enough? And I know this committee is always very supportive of making sure that internal audit can function properly. And I think the other point on that is that I know that you have been diverted to assist with COVID work, and rightly so. I mean, COVID has been such an impact on everybody that was a necessity. But of course, you can't get away from the fact it's diverted you from doing the roles and the internal audits that you should have been doing. And therefore, again, have we got a problem there? Because I notice in your institute's report, one of the comments they're making is that you've got to be careful that you're not avoiding diversion into non-core audit work. And I'm sort of a little bit concerned that you do have adequate resources, bearing in mind the other pressures that you've had to absorb during this year. And to be honest, I think it's ongoing at the moment, because I know that you're administering grants as fast as you can, and that takes a significant amount of time. So resources as one of them. And the other point I wanted to raise was limitation of scope is something you raised too, in making sure that you do have adequate access to the information you need to be able to complete your audit work adequately. And I did wonder, and perhaps Sarah will be able to answer this later, is whether limitation of scope in the audit has become a risk on the risk register, because clearly it is an issue that could be problematical to council, because it could influence what report you give in your annual opinion.
Yeah, so resources, it'd be useful when we meet in March to talk through the plan. I think I'll be able to explain it in a bit more detail because I'm just at the early stages of sort of pulling that together. I'll be honest, and of course that plan did have a big proportion of my time in it, and that's just not going to be there anymore. So we are going to need to look at how we deliver fair audit coverage for, you know, the business activity the council's covering. So that is ongoing at the moment, and I hope to be in a better position in, you know, in 4 weeks' time when I come back with the audit plan to sort of firm up a bit more as to what resource I need and how we're going to meet that resource. Of course, we've always got the option to buy in a casual resource if we can. I'm going to risk assess the plan as I normally do, so things will be flexible, move around. But I am just conscious that there's a chunk of time that's going to be out the plan because I'm now taking up other responsibilities. So we do need to explore that a bit more, and I need to have some. I think I just need a little bit of time to have a look at that structure and then chat it over with Sarah, if I'm honest, to see the best way to resource that audit plan, to then come back and give you that assurance that what we can deliver is going to be sufficient to give you the audit opinion that you're going to be seeking each year. In terms of, just to update on the administration of the grants, so we've sort of stepped away from actually sort of the application process, but we are picking up a little bit of work around the reporting. So the central government have asked for lots of information. The National Fraud Initiative has asked for data so they can do data matching on it. So we've taken on some of that responsibility and work on that. So of course that's taken out time, but it's meant that the pressure hasn't been on the taxation teams that are processing those applications. The limitation of scope, as I said, I'm confident I can deliver an annual opinion if I can get that work completed that's in progress. So it's just, I'll keep you updated. I'll keep you another update in 4 weeks' time. But yeah, I'm constantly meeting with the team. I've got a team meeting tomorrow to talk through the priorities and just to try and get this work pushed forward. But as I said, it's just uncertain at the moment because I just don't know what's going to happen, if someone's going to be available to do the work or if they're, you know, sadly going to be off sick. It's just, yeah, it's take each day, unfortunately, at the moment, isn't it? Which I think it's the same for lots of people.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Jo. And obviously, I know you will keep us updated because you always do, and I thank you for that. And let's just hope that we can maintain the proper resource that you require to be able to complete this very important work. So thank you, Jo.
Thank you. I don't think there are any other questions. I can't see, Chair, that we've got anyone else indicating that they want to ask a question. So if I can hand back to you then, Chair, I think there's a recommendation that's going to need.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jo. Could you just remind me of that recommendation?
Right, it is that councillors are happy that those 2 audits from 1920 that were originally going to form part of the annual opinion for 1920 can now officially move to 2021 and form part of the annual opinion for 2021.
Thank you very much. Members, first of all, do I have a proposer that we make that recommendation?
Yes, Chair, I propose.
That was, thank you, Councillor Bourne, and a seconder?
Second, Chair. Okay,
thank you, Councillor Irish. Is there any debate on that or any part of the agenda, that item, now that we've had all the questions? Okay, it's been proposed and seconded that we note the report and we agreed to move those 2 audits to the 2021 year. Can I ask all members who are in favour to say aye?
Aye, in favour.
Aye. Aye.
Any abstentions? And anyone against? Thank you, that's unanimous. Item 6 then is verbal updates from members representing Strategic Risk Management Group, Procurement Executive Group and the Housing Group. I will start with Councillor Tyson Payne for SRMG. Have you got anything to report?
Good evening, everyone. In answer to Councillor Atkinson's question, scope of limitation was not added to the corporate risk register. However, when we were discussing it, the work for assigning roles and responsibilities was still being worked up and has not been applied to the corporate risk register yet. Joe, I see you looking and nodding. I have got that correct, haven't I?
Yes, sorry, Councillor Atkinson, I forgot to come back to you on that one. Yes, no, we can certainly add that to our next meeting in March. I believe we're meeting again, and we can talk it through, and I can explain a bit more to SRMG, and if necessary, we can add that into the corporate risk register.
Yes. We had, let me just bring my notes up on screen, bear with. So we had we did the corporate risk register and the COVID risk register. There were no changes in either register. And we went through them line by line. We also saw the arts and culture and direct services risk register. I have to say the arts and culture risk register has moved forward massively, and I felt very comforted by the information that was there. That's not to say I wasn't by everything else, but it felt like arts and culture had moved on a long way since the last time we looked at the risk register. Which is quite important, given that actually COVID has had quite an impact on the arts and culture work. Direct services risk register, trees was raised again. It's on the risk register. We had quite a discussion about that and the work that's ongoing to keep on top of the trees changes, so the new policy and performance policy that's coming in for trees. Also, Hedge End Depot, a project has started to look at whether or not the depot can continue in its current location or if there are other options. Now that work has started. Health and safety update, good response from staff about home working and desks. Everybody who's wanted something has had what they've been given. Oh yes, there was no attendance from the insurance department, so we didn't get to see their risk register. I believe they're being re-invited to the next meeting. Business continuity, the only issue with business continuity is with the change of staff. These need to be re-looked at to check that they're all the right people in the right places to make sure that business continuity plan is working. And yes, the next one is on the 11th of March. Any questions?
Any questions from members? No. Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Tyson Payne. And we'll move on to Councillor Atkinson for PEG.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Councillor Tyson Payne, for responding and about the limited scope on audit, and we'll carry that one forward to our next meeting, so thank you for that. Right, PEG met on the 19th of January, and I'll go through the agenda items we discussed. So on the procurement action plan, we're continuing to review climate change impact on procurement, and Jason said that he's looking at the big ticket items first, for example, the One Horton Heath project. We did just remind him that we are intending to achieve carbon neutrality on our own operations by 2025, which is only 4 years away, and Jason advised we should be okay. So hopefully that will prove to be the case. All procurement to be carried out by online systems. Some training is still required for some members of staff in all departments. The procurement process, this does need to be reviewed, but we want to undertake that once the Brexit Green Paper on transforming public procurement has been adopted. Otherwise, we might be having to do the whole process all over again, and it seemed to be a waste of time. The contracts register, this is being published as required under transparency regulations, and invoice spend reports, that's being reviewed so we can ensure we get the right information available to PEG so that council spending can be monitored to ensure we get best value for money and for environment, climate change issues. Performance indicators, nothing exceptional to report there. We did note that it was reported that minutes of PEG have been hard to find, and there were concerns why that was the case, as we felt minutes were important documents and clearly need to be kept filed carefully. We did ask that Democratic Department be asked to advise why this is the case and report back to PEG to make sure that we can access minutes going forward. Perhaps that's another one for Joe to look at. I like the idea. You've got a lot of things under your umbrella, Joe. Waivers, we approved one for the purchase of a demonstrator for single body waste collection, which seemed absolutely appropriate to do. And climate change update, the new manager is in place and additional trainings to be provided for staff to deal with climate change issue. Changes to fleet are being planned to reduce carbon emissions. So quite a lot of activity, but obviously we'll have more to report next time once we've got our invoice spend reports available. We can take a closer look at that, and clearly the procurement process is something that we'll be looking at as soon as we're able to. So thank you, Chair.
Can I just come back on one quick point there, just about those minutes? You'll be pleased to hear, Margaret, that it's all been resolved. It was just a tiny little training issue, and it was a matter of pressing a publish button. So they are all there and available now. So
yeah, that really is good news, because it is a bit worrying when you suddenly hear that minutes might have disappeared off the face of the earth, because although they're not long, they are intended to stay there. So thank you for that, Joe.
That's all right.
Thank you, Margaret. And we'll move on to the housing group. Councillor Dean, have you had a meeting since Christmas?
Yeah, I've got to give my apologies, Chair. The last month, I'm afraid, for me has been an absolute nightmare, and I've totally lost the plot. So
okay,
if Wayne or Margaret has any update, can give you any information on it, I'd much appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Margaret,
can you update us?
As far as I'm aware, Chair, there hasn't been another meeting since the one that we had and was reported on to our previous.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's right, actually. I can't recall one, no.
No, and yeah, the last one I have noted was November 20, so presumably we'll be due one now, because we're supposed to have them quarterly, so yeah, presumably sometime February, but maybe Andy can tell us that later in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to item 7, which is a cabinet forward plan. It's on your agenda. Do any members have anything they wish to raise from that plan? No, thank you. We'll move on to item 8, which is the A&R work plan. Sarah, have we got anything that needs to be identified and brought to our attention on here?
I think the only two things, Chair, are that if you look for today's meeting, it says the repairs and renewals report was coming, but that's actually going to come to March now, which slips the property portfolio update to, I believe, is a meeting at the end of May. which Laura will correct me if I'm wrong. So I think we need to add a section for May and include the property portfolio update to then.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Atkinson, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to ask, we did have down that we were going to have external audit progress reported to all meetings. Now, I think that was a hangover from when we had more concerns about our external audit than perhaps we have now. But I just wondered whether it was the intention that we're supposed to have them at all meetings, in which case, obviously, we haven't got them today and we haven't got them scheduled for March, in which case, why not? Or have we changed our minds on that, and are we now only looking for them to come to specific meetings when requested?
I can come back on that if you like, Chair. Yeah, I must admit, I didn't realise it wasn't still on the forward on our forward plan, but on considering it, I think we probably don't need them there. It was a hangover from when we had issues a couple of years ago, and I think the success of the audit last year means we probably don't need to, but obviously it's over to you members if you want an update each time we can, but I think the update at the moment will be fairly positive.
According to Andy, they're coming in March.
Yeah, so they'll come to that meeting, but we won't need verbal updates at every, no. I don't think we need verbal updates at every A&R going forward.
No, I think you're right. It was when we were having some issues and we wanted to keep a check on how things were going. Margaret, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. Can we just have March updated to include them then for there, and then review where they feature in later meetings?
Yes.
And perhaps adjust as we feel appropriate, or perhaps we can be guided by Andy / Sarah on that. Okay,
no problem.
Thank you.
Can I ask for a proposer that we note the report and accept the movement of the 2 items that Sarah mentioned earlier?
Yes, Chair, happy to propose.
Yeah,
thank
happy
you,
to second.
Councillor Bourne, Councillor Irish to second. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 And abstentions? And anyone against? Okay, thank you very much. Item 9 is to go to exempt business, to consider passing a resolution under section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972 in respect of the following item of business on the ground that they are likely to involve disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act. The schedule 12A categories have been amended and are now subject to the public interest test in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act 2000. This came into effect on the 1st of March 2006. It is considered that the following item is exempt from disclosure and the public interest in not disclosing the information outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Do I have a proposer?
Yes, Chair, happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Bourne, and a seconder.
Second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Irish. All those in favour?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Thank you. Any abstentions? And anyone against? Okay, thank you very much. That is carried. Remind members you have to come out of this meeting and log on to your new separate meeting for this. See you in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.